From the Toronto Star, I'm Raji Mudder, and this matters. To mix and match vaccines, or not? That is the question. At least that's the one facing many Ontarians out there who got AstraZeneca as their first dose of vaccine. For many people in hotspots, including Toronto, there is now an accelerated drive to get your second dose. But for all of us, this entire pandemic has sent us back to science class as we read up on the latest news, innovations, and changes in policy that often leave many people confused about the rules. It's also shown that even the most brilliant scientists are often not the most brilliant communicators. Today, we are going to talk about some of the challenges of disseminating information during this pandemic, and we will also cover everything you need to know about your second dose. Although, you will still also need patience and perseverance finding one, using Ontario's confusing booking system. Samantha Yamin is a neuroscientist, molecular biologist, and science communicator who goes by Science Sam on Instagram, where she helps navigate and break down the science in a clear and useful way. Sam, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Sam, I want to say that, while you should be very, very proud of your education and your degrees, I really wanted you on this show because I think you are awesome on Instagram. You have helped me get through some of this stuff and explain some of these things. And I think that you have been using your knowledge to explain things in a really human way. Now, how difficult do you think it's been for health and science experts to communicate things effectively during this pandemic?
Thank you for the kind words, first of all. But I do also want to say it's been nothing short of a challenge over the past year for everyone, even people like me who, now are fully focused on best practices in science communication. This has been a year where people have been watching the science as it's emerging under a microscope, and things have been changing fast. And there are so many nuances and layers. And I think what's been a big challenge is for everyone is how to communicate the nuance, let people know that there's uncertainty, but also say it simply in 280 characters in a tweet or a 5-minute radio segment. And it's been a challenge for everyone, the novice science communicator to someone who's been doing this for years like me.
Okay, you hit on two of the things that I was going to bring up. The fact that things are fluid, and as humans, we're pretty good at nuance in our own lives, but we demand absolutes and clarity from everything else. What is it, do you think, that makes it difficult for scientists to communicate effectively here? I think the one thing I'm going to say is, there was a medical officer of health recently who characterized the vaccine rollout as the great human experiment. That might be true, but I don't want to hear it.
Oh, that's very misleading to say. And that actually is the perfect example where the word experiment, it has different colloquial meanings, and one person will perceive it with a different context than someone else, right? When that person is saying it, they're thinking something completely different than the average person who's hearing it. And I think that's the key, is remembering that everyone brings a different set of experiences and context to every conversation. And I don't think we're always paying attention to that. As a scientist, when we're reading a paper, we may already know the context and that this is only an antibody study in a dish, so it's not representative of all layers of immunity in a body. We may know that, and we may have that context, but someone listening may just hear, oh, antibodies are decreased. I have no immunity against this variant, and I'm completely vulnerable. And I think we keep forgetting to add the context. And at this stage, the infodemic is really about an avalanche of information, both correct and false. And what we really need to pay attention to right now is making sure that we're giving the context and the take home. And sometimes the details can come later.
I think one of the things that you are fantastic at is dealing with misinformation. I think I saw where, you try to magnet, which is something getting out there. What do you think people should do when they hear something questionable about the virus or they are concerned?
Most importantly, questions are awesome. They drive science. So my supervisor for my PhD always said, there's no such thing as a bad question, just a bad answer. And I really do believe that for the most part. So it's great if you have a question or if you see something and you want to learn more, that's awesome. Where I like to start is just to get some of that context, type into Google whatever you heard. So for example, will the vaccine make me magnetic? And add the word fact check, because right now there are so many independent fact checkers, phenomenal journalists who are writing up these summaries. They're giving the historical context for these rumors that we're hearing. And that's a great place to start. And then you can click through and find the scientific literature if you want. But if you're short on time, just start with a Google search with the word fact check for whatever you heard, and go to your go-to people, the people that have been helping you understand all throughout the pandemic and over the years. Be wary of the person who is talking about this for the first time or just came onto the scene. Go to your regular trusted sources who have always led you on the right path.
That is a great way. It's one of the reasons I have you on the show right now. So listen, let's move to one of the reasons we want to talk. We're going to talk about second doses. The Ontario government gave some news about some acceleration. The world is reopening, but we still have to remain vigilant because of the rise of the Delta variant. How concerned do you think people should be right now?
I think we should be concerned that the virus is circulating enough that there are continued variants, and Delta is a concerning variant. We're still learning how much more transmissible, but I've seen numbers from 40 to 64% more transmissible than Alpha, or that original variant found in the UK. So it's more transmissible, and anytime we see that, that's a concern. So it is concerning because it means that the virus will keep spreading, and that means more opportunities for it to mutate into even more concerning variants. What I want people to keep in mind is that so far, all the vaccines that are authorized for use in Canada are wonderfully effective against all the variants of concern and of interest, all the variants that we've been studying so far. So while I want you to not drop your guard and to still remain diligent, I also want you to know that getting vaccinated is amazing and still one of the most important things that you can do right now. One dose is still proving to be quite helpful against the most severe outcomes of COVID, namely hospitalization and death. But people are increasingly still acquiring infection with just one dose, usually mild. So feel good about your first dose, but go in for that second dose to get your maximal protection. And that's how we really drop this thing to the floor and stop giving it opportunities to continue to mutate.
One of the other reasons I wanted you on is because you helped put this report out, basically titled, I got AstraZeneca for my first dose. Which vaccine should I get for my second? Okay, this is me. I'm a Gen Xer. I got my first dose of AZ. I'll be quite honest, super happy with it.
Great.
But because of the communications, I know a lot of my cohort is feeling like they have a lesser vaccine because of the communications. What would you say to that?
To Gen X, Zeneca, and anyone else who ran to go get their first dose as they were told, I am so grateful that you did that. And I am sorry that people have made it seem like it was a bad choice, but those people are just bad at communicating. It was a phenomenal choice. Getting vaccinated sooner is always an amazing thing to do. So I know that now you're stuck with yet another point of stress for people who've received this vaccine.
We're going to get to that, right?
Of which one to get for your second dose. The good news is whatever you choose is a great choice. And it comes down at this point to preference, which is what a luxury that we can be having preferences when so many parts of the world don't even have any options.
We'll be right back. See, this is the thing. I'll be quite honest. I kind of don't want a choice. I don't want someone to just tell me what to do. And I'll do it as soon as possible. But what does the latest science tell us about, one, mixing and matching, and then two, some of the side effects? Because I think of the reports that I've read, there's a potential that the vaccine hangover, and I'm using air quotes, people out there who can't hear me, might be worse.
So far, what we know, so of course, sticking to the same vaccine has been studied and done in the real world in way more people. So AstraZeneca first dose, AstraZeneca second dose, that's the thing that's happened much more commonly around the world. We have the most information about that, showing safety and showing effectiveness. There is still a risk of these serious but rare blood clots that people are calling Withe after that second dose. We're not sure exactly how frequently that can happen, maybe 1 in every 600,000 doses. But we do know that otherwise it's robustly safe and still effective against variants. So I think there, when you match, you stick to the same dose for number 2, you kind of know what the potential risk is. When it comes to swapping your second dose, if you started with AstraZeneca, getting dose 2, an mRNA vaccine like Pfizer, for example, there's no theoretical reason why that would be unsafe. And so far, we've tested it in the low thousands of people, and we haven't seen any safety signals. But I want people to know that it hasn't been studied in tens of thousands of people yet, like the matching case has. However, it's already being done around the world, and we'll have a lot more data. Like every day that passes, we're getting more information. So I want people to know there's that slight unknown, but there's no theoretical reason or observed safety concerns with mixing so far. And there is a potential benefit in the mixing case. So far in these really small studies, again, this could change as we learn more, but it seems like people are getting at least as much antibody response as when you do AstraZeneca then Pfizer, as if you were to get Pfizer. So it's not worse. And there may even be a slight boost in T cells, which is an extra layer of defense, particularly great against the variants in your immune system. And it seems like you might have slightly better T cell response when you get AstraZeneca than Pfizer compared to if you got both doses AstraZeneca. So there's a potential upside. There's a bit of uncertainty. And so it really comes down to what you can access sooner and which type of risk, certain or uncertain, you're more comfortable with.
That was a double-barrel question there, so I was bad. But what about this idea about the vaccine hangover, about side effects? What do we know about that?
That's an important thing to touch on. In some of the studies that they've done a handful of studies in different sites in Europe. And in some cases, when people did AstraZeneca, then an mRNA vaccine like Pfizer, they had slightly more of those benign, harmless, but annoying kind of hangover side effects, what we call reactogenicity. It's just your immune response doing its thing. You may not feel anything, but slightly more people felt them than when they stuck to the same vaccine. So it's not that they were like significantly worse. It's just, it was more common in people. These typically resolve in a day or two. They're not serious. And I kind of think of it like when you go to the gym and you're sore the next day, it's just your body doing its thing. If you don't feel it, you still did your workout. If you do feel it, it's just a sign that things are happening.
Well, my strategy is to have celebratory drinks after I get the vaccine. So the next day, I'm not really sure which hangover I'm having. Anyways, I'll be...
I mean, maybe not too much. Maybe not too much. Let your body work.
I'm kidding. To be honest, I didn't have a hangover. So I'm like, bring it on. So you mentioned it earlier, but here's the thing. I have a choice here. Is there any reason to choose between Moderna or Pfizer?
Yeah, when it comes to Moderna or Pfizer, between the two mRNA vaccines, we have more data so far on Pfizer just because of the places that are doing the studies. They're using that vaccine more. But Pfizer and Moderna are honestly pretty much the same. So there's no reason to think that it would be any different. And I think one reason to choose one over the other would just be access, which one's available to you sooner. But other than that, there's no real reason to choose one over the other. They're both fantastic and they're both essentially the same vaccine.
Here's the other thing too. What should people know about after getting their second dose? Like, is it time to party?
I would say first, after your second dose, immediately after, give yourself a rest and reward for doing something amazing. And when it comes to when you can put caution to the wind, please, let's wait to hear what guidelines we get in Canada. But in any case, know that it can take a few weeks, even after that second dose, for all the layers of your immune response to mature. It actually takes a few weeks for some of those strongest protectors, killer T cells, they're called, that actually do a lot of the attacking on infected cells if you were to get infection. They take a few weeks to mature. So I would say if we do see any guidelines on what new activities we can do safely, it would probably be a few weeks at least after that second dose. So give your body some time to do its thing and build that immunity for you.
What are people asking you about this right now? What do they want to know?
People want to still know which vaccine is best for dose 2. Yeah, that's the big thing, and what they can do differently. People really want to know, like, can I hug and kiss this person? Can I do X and Y safely? And I think that's what we're looking at for this summer, is there being a lot more opportunities for safe activities. And I think we deserve that after such a hard winter. We deserve to be able to have some fun and to know our risks and make sure that we're minimizing them as much as possible, but still enjoying ourselves and having our shot girl summer.
So Sam, I've said that I've watched you on Instagram and I saw you post about your first dose. I found it really interesting that despite the fact that you're obviously very pro-vaccine, you actually aren't a fan of needles. You took a lot of steps to make that more comfortable. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what other people can do?
Yeah, I will say for all the people who think I want us to be in a pandemic forever because I love the attention of talking about vaccines, I just want you to know it causes me great stress. I actually would love to talk about anything besides needles, but I just had to add that. Yeah, for me, I've had traumatic experiences getting needles in the past, whether for blood draw or for vaccinations. And even though I know how important they are and I love vaccines, I love what's in the needle, the method of getting it through a needle for me is just something that causes me great distress, a lot of panic, a lot of fear. I was crying the whole day of my vaccination, even though I was so excited to be vaccinated. The process of getting there was really hard. So I was able to go to an accessibility clinic that allowed me to request accommodations, like bringing my partner with me, being able to lie down and being able to get my vaccine in a private area so that I wouldn't be watched, because sometimes I faint. I didn't with this one, which was exciting. But in case I did faint, I wanted some privacy. And they were really happy to accommodate that. And so I just want to say for anyone else who has had similar traumatic experiences and is really dreading that moment, please know that you can ask for whatever you need. Think about what would make it easier for you and ask for it. And the people running these clinics are amazing. They're so kind. They get so much joy for helping people. And so just know that they will accommodate whatever it is that you need if you can. So please ask for it, because you deserve to be accommodated and you deserve accessibility to this life-saving vaccine.
Sam, I think this has been really, really fantastic for us. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think our listeners should know?
I would love for everyone to be compassionate to one another and have empathetic and kind and respectful conversations about vaccines. If you know somebody who does have questions and is hesitant to get vaccinated, please, if you can and you know them well enough, have a conversation, ask them what they're concerned about and listen to them, and then help them understand the way that you felt comfortable. And I think if we have a lot more of those conversations, helping people book if that's an issue for them, then we can get to a place where we'll have a lot less polarization on this topic and we can all just move on to better things.
I personally can't wait. Sam, I really, really want to thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me, Raju.
Samantha Yamin is a neuroscientist, molecular biologist, and science communicator who goes by Science Sam on Instagram. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. This Matters is hosted and produced by me, Raju Mudler, Adrian Chung, and Saba Etisaz. Produced and mixed by Sean Pattenden, and our director of programming is JP Fozo. Our show theme music is by So Called, and our episode music is by Mike DeAngelis. We want to hear what stories matter to you. Please send us comments, questions, or ideas to thismatters@thestar.ca. Please consider supporting the journalism the Toronto Star newsroom does at thestar.com. And don't forget to subscribe to This Matters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's talk soon.